Before we begin this story, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here we tell stories for those who need to breathe, to remember who they are, and to believe that there is always a new beginning, even when everything feels too cold. The train moved slowly through the white landscape of northern Portugal. The snow fell without haste, as if the sky itself were in silence. Emily kept her forehead pressed against the frozen glass of the window, watching the white-capped mountains, the stone houses with low roofs, and the trees stripped bare by winter. Everything seemed frozen in time. That town, Serra do Vale, wasn't just a destination. It was a memory. A part of her she could never quite leave behind. In her lap, a small suitcase. Inside, a few clothes, a heavy coat, and an old photograph folded with care. Outside, a world that seemed as cold as the one she carried in her chest. Emily wasn't there for joy. She was there because life had become too heavy to continue the way it was. Months earlier, her marriage had ended without scandals or shouting, only with that painful silence that arises when two people realize they've lost each other along the way. After that came sleepless nights, colorless days, and the constant feeling of living a life that was no longer hers. Then, like someone finding a plank in the middle of a shipwreck, she remembered Serra do Vale. The childhood, the snow, the laughter, John. She didn't know if he still lived there. She didn't know if she even wanted to see him. But she needed to go back to the place where, once upon a time, everything made sense. When the train stopped, Emily took a deep breath. The freezing air burned her lungs, and strangely, it felt good. As if the cold were trying to wake her up to life again. Serra do Vale remained small, simple, and welcoming. The station was almost the same as when she was a child. Stone walls, wooden benches, and the smell of hot coffee coming from the small corner bar. As she walked along the platform, a strange feeling mixed fear and hope. And that's when she saw him. John was leaning against the fence, the same calm gaze, now marked by time. His brown hair was a bit shorter, his beard unshaven, his frame broader, like someone who had carried many responsibilities too early. He looked up, and the world stopped. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. Then, almost at the same time, they smiled. "Emily," he said, as if testing the name after many years. "John." That simple encounter seemed to hold all the words left unsaid for over a decade. They hugged. No rush. No explanation. Just a long, silent, necessary embrace. At that moment, the snow began to fall harder. And Emily realized that perhaps this return was exactly what her heart had been silently asking for. John walked beside her through the narrow streets. Emily's suitcase was in his hand, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if no time had passed at all. "Do you still live near the lake?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "Some things never change." The lake appeared ahead, frozen, reflecting the pale sky. There, as children, they had skated, laughed, and dreamed of futures that seemed infinite. Emily felt a lump in her throat. "I thought I'd never step foot here again," she confessed. "I thought the same about you," John replied, without accusation, only truth. Inside her room at the inn, Emily sat on the bed holding the old photograph, her and John, children, covered in snow, laughing at something only they remembered. The past was there. But now, there was something different, the chance for a new beginning. The church bell tolled slowly the next morning. The sound traveled through the snow, the roofs, and the silence, reaching the heart. She dressed slowly and went for a walk. Serra do Vale didn't just feel like a place, it felt like a state of mind. Near the central square, she saw John stacking crates at the door of the small grocery store he ran with his father. "Good morning," she said with a reserved smile. John looked up, surprised and happy. "Good morning. I didn't know if you'd come out in this cold. I needed to walk. To breathe." They sat together on a bench covered in a thin layer of ice. "You seem different," John commented. "Quieter. Life teaches us to speak less and feel more," Emily replied. After a few seconds, John broke the silence. "I made many mistakes, Emily." He told her about the day she left years ago. He had promised to go after her, but the next day, he received news of his mother's illness. Everything changed. He stayed. Fear won. The silence grew. "I never explained it to you," he said. "And that has stayed with me all these years." Emily felt tears arrive without permission. "I waited, John. I waited so long." They didn't touch. But in that moment, something invisible began to heal. Some wounds don't close on their own. They need to be seen, heard, welcomed. Slowly, Emily began to blend back into the life of the town. She helped at the inn, shared long conversations, and drank coffee by the wood-burning stove. She met John by the lake that afternoon. "You know," Emily said, "I spent years thinking I needed a new place to start over, but maybe I just needed courage." John smiled. Sometimes, the anew starts exactly where the pain was. She told him about the end of her marriage. Not with bitterness, but with honesty. "I lost myself," she confessed. "But I'm trying to come back." "Me too," John said. "I lost myself in choices I didn't make. In words I didn't speak." The wind brought the distant sound of children's laughter. Life went on, even after everything. Winter progressed, and with it, something silent grew between them. It was a comfortable silence. Different from the silence that hurts. Emily realized that when she was with John, the pain of the past diminished. It didn't disappear, but it became smaller, lighter. One night, by the fireplace, John asked, "Are you afraid of getting attached again?" Emily took a moment. "I'm afraid of losing myself again." He nodded. He understood more than words could explain. "The choices we make shape us," Emily said, looking at him, "but they don't imprison us." The storm arrived without warning. John and Emily took refuge in an old family barn. Inside, the silence was deep, broken only by their breathing. "Funny," Emily said, "I've never felt more alive than I do right now." "Fear makes us remember that we're still here," John replied. Emily shivered. John carefully wrapped his arm around her shoulders. She didn't pull away. "Do you trust me?" he whispered. She closed her eyes. Yes. There was no kiss. No promise. Just two tired hearts finding shelter in one another. After the storm, the air was clearer. Emily found John by the lake. "John, I don't know what is happening between us, but I can't pretend it's just friendship anymore." John stepped closer. "I feel it too. Every day. And I'm afraid of never having a chance to do things differently." The kiss came slowly. It wasn't like a rushed movie scene, it was something built by years of silence and longing. There, by the frozen lake, two hearts chose courage. With love came questions. Emily had a job offer in Lisbon, a safe, comfortable restart. John had deep roots here. "Maybe love isn't about choosing the place," Emily said, "but choosing the person." The next morning, Emily turned down the job. "I chose to stay," she said. "Not out of fear, but out of hope." John cried. Not of sadness, but of relief. Winter began its slow goodbye. The snow melted. The lake woke up. Emily and John rebuilt the inn together. They turned the old barn into a small community library. One clear morning, John knelt in the square. "You taught me that it's never too late to come home," he said. "Will you build this home with me?" Emily didn't answer with words. She simply held him, crying. Life wasn't perfect, but it was whole. Perhaps, like Emily and John, you are also carrying old wounds or painful silences. And perhaps you are waiting, even without realizing it, for a new beginning. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here, no one walks alone. Leave a comment about what you felt. Sometimes, a story is all someone needs to keep going.